Good morning, everyone, or good evening to those of you who are joining us from outside the United States. Welcome to this panel discussion on what's next in aftermarket services, brought to you by Tech Mahindra and Pegasystems. We really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this session today. My name is Padma Hariharan, and I'm a Partner Development Executive at Pega. Just wanted to give a few housekeeping items before we really get into the meat of this presentation today. First of all, you all have been muted upon entry, but we do want you to participate actively. So please ask your questions in the Q&A section at the end of in the Q&A section of the webinar in Zoom. And we'll try to respond to them as quickly as possible. We will also be having some time for question and answers at the end of the session. So if we don't get to it in the middle of the session, we will try to get to it at the end. We'll also be conducting some short polls during this session, and we would much appreciate if you can actively participate and respond to those polls so we can direct the discussion accordingly. Leading the panel today is Ali Pinder. Ali is the Program Director, Service Innovation and Connected Products at IDC. Joining Ali are some very respected speakers from the industry. We have Mike Suter, who's a Vice President for After Sales in Nissan North America. Joining him is Joe Corey, Senior Vice President of After Sales at Navistar. And then we have Steve Silver, who's VP Industry Market Leader Manufacturing, which covers automotive and high tech at Pegasystems. And Nilesh Auti from Tech Mahindra. He's the Digital Officer and Global Head of Manufacturing. So with no further ado, let me hand this off to Ali.
Thank you, Padma, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I look forward to sharing with you quite a bit of content today. I'll be leading the moderation, obviously, but one of the things that I'm really interested in as an analyst is to kind of set the stage and think about what the state of the market is looking like. I represent IDC, and we cover quite a bit of content when we think about digital transformation and how organizations are thinking about leveraging technology to accelerate their transformation. We'll then jump into the panel discussion as Padma laid out, where we'll look at some of the challenges facing some of the executives on the panel, some of the ways in which they're thinking about moving from incremental initiatives to really service excellence and ensuring they're able to drive at that next value proposition for customers. We'll look at how the digital divide has really put a lens on magnifying glass on how you can move from pilots to accelerated transformation, and then wrap up with what's next as the title lays out. We'll have some time for some Q&A at the end. So let's dive right in. When I think about the last 12 months, quite a lot has occurred, right, in our personal and business lives. What I think is really, really important for all of us to understand is as manufacturers and organizations think about their priorities, the ability to make sure that employees can be productive is key and core to how companies are going to excel in a disrupted environment. But we still need to think about operational efficiencies as we think about linking productivity with getting the job done. And that's still top of mind for leaders, especially within service. Profitability is key to the business. And you may look at the slide and say, why is revenue so low when you think about priorities for service leaders? The way I look at this data point is companies and organizations are thinking about not only driving revenue, but ensuring that their costs do not overwhelm their businesses as they think about disruption. And continuing to say, how can we be more resilient and still innovate as we think about delivering on that value proposition in the coming 12 to 15 months within the business? When we looked prior to the pandemic in the last kind of 12 months, back to some data that we found a couple years back, when we looked at what are the business concerns really driving your need to try to differentiate and drive at why you're investing in digital transformation, top of mind for service leaders and leaders in general was the fact that competition is impacting their business today. Historically, we may have seen our businesses impact in a silo where we're never being confronted by competitors. Now, that is no longer the case. Competition, whether you know it within kind of down the street within your business or across the globe, is impacting the way in which you need to think about your offerings. The ability to expand into new markets, add new value, deliver better service for customer is going to be key to how organizations can prioritize what makes sense for their businesses moving forward. Specifically on the aftermarket and from a service lifecycle management perspective, what I think is really interesting is, how do we ensure we're able to beat back competition, deliver at more value for customers? Service leaders we surveyed and sampled looked at a few key areas, right? Not only do we need to understand what is good and can we democratize knowledge across organizations to ensure we're capturing knowledge from those workforces that are across the globe, but can we ensure we can incentivize the best practices that lead to value and the right offerings to customers? But how can we do that in a way that the customer understands the value being created from a revenue perspective, and we're delivering on that promise to ensure that we're able to improve product quality and deliver service at speed and scale for our businesses? These are the kind of three core areas I continue to go back for. Knowledge transfer, driving it the right value to drive it revenues. It's no good to just deliver service and the customer is not willing to pay for it. You need to ensure you're able to deliver the right value to customers. And then customers don't expect that in this day of digital transformation technology, that their complaints will go unheard. Quality issues will continue to be in place. You need to be faster at responding, whether that be hopefully not reactively, but proactively to future quality issues and customer complaints. When we think about, hitting on best practices, delivering value from a revenue generation perspective, and being better at delivering service, I think there's a few ways in which manufacturers and service leaders need to think about getting to that point of service value. For me, it's, how can we personalize service at scale? And the executive panel will dive into how they're looking at it within their industries. But, can we ensure that we're able to provide a self-service opportunity for customers? Can we look at a customer portal as an opportunity to trigger a future service event and service response before that customer has to dial a phone or log in to reach out to dispatcher? Can we think about how we can take service data and enhance product customization and personalization? What is the link between service data and product data? How can we ensure that we're continuing to iterate at innovation? And then, finally, continuing to think about the after sales and aftermarket as an opportunity to drive at revenue. If I think back 10 to 15 years ago, when I started kind of talking about some of these topics, it was all about cutting costs within the business. Now we all understand that the after sales and aftermarket is an opportunity to not only differentiate and drive value, but drive at revenue opportunities. And I think that should be core to the ways in which you think about your businesses. So what's up for the next 12 to 15 months? It's all digital, right? I think we all understand that our experiences have evolved from going into a store, going into a physical location all of the time, to think about ways in which we can have a digitally enhanced experience from a product, service, and experience perspective. How can we think about future-proofing our businesses for that next disruption, which is going to occur? Hopefully it's not as bad as the last 12 to 15 months, but there will be a need for us to ensure we're able to continuously innovate, drive at the right digital offerings to create new revenue streams and value to customers. But we're not there yet, right? If you join this webinar to say, 100% of companies are fully transformative, fully invested in the future enterprise, you can see only 1 out of 10 companies that we sampled have reached that kind of, fully transformative view of digital transformation. Most companies that we talk to are somewhere in that middle, thinking about functional investments, thinking about short-term focus, thinking about trying to get to an integrated viewpoint. I want to see all the companies at the top of this. And I think part of this conversation is to see how we can move from the functional short-term to more longer-term strategic visions of where digital and technology can help drive your businesses forward for customers. And over the last 12 months, we've all heard quite a bit about resiliency, right? I think key to everything that, not just the marketing term, but key to the ways in which we need to think about our businesses, how can we ensure that the bets we make, the digital investments we incorporate within our businesses allow us to be resilient for those next innovations that need to occur. And I think that's going to be key to success for the future. And then, one of my final slides is, I don't think you can do it alone. Only 10% of companies were that fully, transformative view around digital transformation. Most companies understand in order for them to accelerate their transformations and move forward quickly, they need to think about building an ecosystem of strategic partners that can help them de-risk initiatives, right? It's not only about making bets that can last, 2 years from a deployment perspective. It's about how can we co-create, how can we align our value proposition and goals? How can we ensure that our partners help us scale? Because we may not be able to deploy across a global network on our own with our own IT infrastructures. That should be part of it, but I think it's important that we think about ways in which the ecosystem can help us evolve quickly. So just before we jump into the panel, and just to cue Mike and Joe and Steve and Nilesh, as we jump into some of the key trends they're seeing within their businesses, I want to leave you with a few points of guidance, right? I think as you're going to look at scaling your businesses forward, you need to think about ways in which information flows across your organization. How can you quickly make decisions that allow you to innovate at the point at which service is needed? Can you move away from being reactive to thinking about how technology can allow you to be more predictive and autonomous? Can you think about enhancing your service business models to move away from the tried and true 2 p.m. visits or the traditional way in which you're interacting with customers to really enhance the offerings that are being provided and deliver more value? Can we create a service culture where not just the service organization is delivering value, but the entire organization thinks about how they can deliver on that promise of value? And then can you personalize at scale? Can service be the differentiator for your business? So hopefully that kind of primes our executive panel as we look at kind of driving into ways in which they see their businesses evolve and they see how they are interacting within Nissan, Navistar on how they're delivering on that value proposition. So with that, I'll bring in our panel, Mike and Joe. As you can see all of our bright, shiny faces, let's go ahead and get it kicked off with the first question to Mike. And we'll spend kind of the next 5 minutes, next 10 minutes talking to the panel about what challenges are facing their businesses today. So Mike, if you can give me a brief view into your service world. And in the last 12 to 15 months, we've seen quite a bit of change and transformation. What have been some of the challenges you've seen within Nissan North America that has driven your desire to innovate and look at the after sales opportunity?
Okay, sure. Well, thanks. First off, Ali, Pega, Tech Mahindra, thanks for having us on the panel. I think it's a great forum for us to have a little bit of discussion. Hopefully it's lively, not too confrontational. I guess a little background to get you started. I'm now 25 years or so into the business and after sales. Last 8 years have been with Nissan in different leadership roles. And for the last 3 years, I've been leading the after sales activity in the Americas. So from kind of the tip of Canada all the way to Argentina for both Nissan and Infiniti brands. I'm blessed. I've got the best team, I think, in the industry. No offense to Joe and his team. And I think we have a bright future. So, you've hit on a couple of things here, and I really liked your slides, Ali, and I think I'm probably going to use them in some future meetings because it really reflects a lot of the things that we're looking at. You talked about here kind of service value and what it means for us at Nissan, and then some of the challenges. So I'll start with the service value. I think as you pointed out in some of the slides, it really is a kind of a mindset. So for us, we treat that as a mindset. We start with our great dealer network. We have incredible dealers, around 2,000 of them in the region. And, it's our job to provide them all the necessary support and systems. And, you talked about siloed systems and fragmented data and so on. We need to do our part to provide them with the tools to operate their best, because the next step on or ladder, rung on the ladder here, I guess, is the customer. And so, we're very customer centric. You talked about, unlocking value. And I took a couple of notes while you were talking around scaling and so on, personalization and so on at scale. And that's actually our goal, is to really have kind of a micro segmentation on a one-to-one type basis, and then hyper personalization, so that the messaging that you receive is deeply relevant to you and timely. And it helps our team really focus on customer satisfaction, fix right first time, and so on. I think today we're talking more about technology, and I would promise you that our team loves the technology and trying to find innovative ways to really get through some of the friction points that we have with our customer base. So 2 last comments here. Really in terms of challenges in the last 12 months, and I think we'll talk more about this later, but really the customer expectations continue to change and evolve, and for us it's like it's a moving target, and it's moving fast. So, we've got to be agile and, to your point, be able to scale up new and relevant technologies. The revenue, which I was a little surprised to see that at the bottom of one of your previous charts there, but for after sales, for our dealer network, it's a profit center. And for our company, it's also a profit center. So, it's important for us to look at the challenges from COVID and, different driving habits and things like that, and the impact that it's having on customer expectations for, pickup and drop off, touchless type of activities and so on. Service intervals are stretching out. Customers have lower cost of ownership, which is all great for the consumer, and we're happy for that. But obviously, it puts a bit of pressure on the revenues for an after-sales operations. We need to look for new revenue streams continuously, whether it's digital services and so on. So I guess lastly, as far as the challenges, we've seen a lot of supply chain issues with semiconductors, and I think everybody understands that situation. So we need to constantly look at our systems and technology and find ways to be more efficient, resilient, as you said in your slides. The systems are fragmented, and if we want to survive and thrive into the next 10, 20 years, I think we need to find different ways to be using technology in supply chain as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I appreciate when you say terms like agility, because when I say it, I think people roll their eyes a little bit. But I really like the hyper-personalization piece that you talked about, and I think it's really interesting as we think about how manufacturers and automotive companies can evolve and be agile. Joe, are there any challenges that you see within your business within Navistar? Maybe give us a quick 30-second view of your service business or after sales, and then what are some of the challenges that you faced over the last kind of 12 to 15 months?
Sure, and thanks, Ali, and I'm happy to participate with this esteemed panel as well. So, when we think about our after-sales organization at Navistar, it's really, for context, it's our parts organization, our service organization. We include warranty and extended service contracts, our customer support centers, et cetera. So that's really kind of our view of after-sales. A little bit on me, I've been in the industry for almost 30 years now, with Ford, PACCAR, and the last 12 years at Navistar, and have led our after-sales organization for the last year. So, getting back to value first before I get into the challenges, we always like to say that, our truck sales guys sell the first truck, but every truck thereafter is sold by after-sales. And that's because, it's our job to really create customers for life. And it's very important that we play that role and do that because we understand just how important after sales is to the value of an organization. As Mike mentioned, it's a profit center. For Navistar, our parts business is a $2 billion business. So, it's a significant EBIT generator for the company. And where does that EBIT go? It goes into further product development, it goes into technology, it goes into services, things that we have to do to continue to reinvest in the company. For our dealers, we know how important the parts and service business is. Our dealers are focused on absorption rates, and they really want the parts and service business to cover the fixed costs of their operations. So it's a very important piece of both the OEM and the dealer business. We offer a lot of value to our customers, and how do we offer that value in after sales? It's through our uptime promise, keeping vehicles on the road and making sure that when a truck does go down, we get it back running as soon as possible, because we know every hour down, every day down for our customers is revenue for them, and we have to help them with that. We offer value through our uptime command center, where we have people looking at our repair velocity, our service network, and orchestrating repairs through the network. We offer value through our customer advocates who really provide concierge-like services for our fleets, helping them with the repair process and ensuring as much uptime as possible. We offer value through our focus on total cost of ownership, helping our customers to be as profitable as possible by looking at their fuel economy, their residual values, their repair and maintenance schedules and costs, et cetera. Our after-sales teams adds value through our connected services and other technologies like our communications tools, our diagnostics tools, our e-commerce repair link parts ordering system. And then there's our network, right? And Mike mentioned the dealers and how instrumental they are in adding value. Well, We have 1,000 service locations, the biggest truck OEM network across North America, and a network of PDCs that we're continuing to grow as we realize the need to continually get parts closer to customers, and that Amazon effect that we're having with customer expectations in terms of delivery are forcing ever increasing focus on us to get parts on dealer shelves and available so that when a truck comes in, it's there. I'm going to shift now to challenges and have to admit that I may have more challenges than Mike, but we have a lot right now, with number one being the challenge just to get parts. You know, we're seeing supply issues throughout the supply chain, and that's probably immediate priority number one, is do what we can to ensure that we're ahead of that and get parts on the dealer shelves, because we know that nothing impacts repair velocity more than having a part on a dealer's shelf when a truck comes in. There's also challenges around technicians in the network. You know, all of us face shortages of technicians, and everybody in the industry on both the auto and the truck side, we're fighting after that same group of technicians and looking for ways to grow technician count in the industry to support all of our dealers, our needs. Growing the business obviously is always a challenge. That won't change. You know, every year we're going to be looking at how do we reach more customers? How do we get to the second through fourth owners? How do we continue to generate revenues for our company so that we can continue to invest? A particular challenge for us that, you know, I think is very relevant is technology investment. We have a lot of investment that we need to do across multiple areas of the business. So we have to find ways to invest wisely, to prioritize investments, to do things differently than we have in the past. We can't just add huge IT projects and systems infrastructure projects. We have to adapt and find different ways to introduce technology into the after sales organization that can help us really become easier to do business with for our customers. That's a key element that our dealers, our customers tell us all the time, is we want a partner that's easy to do business with. And that's something that we're very focused on, and one of our challenges as an organization. Another challenge for us is all around this digitalization journey. And I know we'll talk more about that as we go forward, but you know, we're in the infancy stages, I would say. You know, Al, you said a lot of companies are in the middle ranges of that. I think we're still in our infancy, and a lot of room and opportunity to grow in terms of digitalization. And you know, really to sum up kind of the challenges for us, it's really a reinvention of our after sales organization. You know, we're going to have to be a different organization in 5 years than we are today. There's a lot of environmental pressures, you know, the shift to e-mobility, autonomous, digitalization, all of those things are forcing us to really look at ourselves and say, how do we reinvent what we are as an after sales organization?
Right. That's a lot. I think we can have a whole webinar on tackling some of those challenges, Joe. So maybe give it a shot for Steve and Nilesh to provide a viewpoint on how they're seeing maybe some additional challenges. I think we covered most of the ones I would see on a survey that I put out. But Steve, are there any other challenges you see within Pega clients that may not have been mentioned by Mike or Joe?
I think the real question, and thanks for the question, and it's great to be with this terrific panel. So I get the benefit of working with clients in automotive, industrial, high tech, med device, especially as our primary sectors. And what we see across all of them is the question of how. So both Mike and Joe highlighted these challenges and the efforts that go on day to day to bring them to life. But the reality is that the how has always been the deterrent to making the changes necessary. And so increasingly the how in the past, the how essentially said, well, there's nothing we can do about this, or we're going to need to spend a couple of years to really transform this. And so what we see now is that the expectation about the ability to automate or to engage or to personalize or to connect these disconnected processes, or connecting the OEM and the dealer and then that connected vehicle in some way and the customer, the how is less of an obstacle because the technology has enabled our clients like Mike and Joe and others in these similar sectors to be able to connect them in ways that they haven't done before, and not have to write tons and tons of code to do that. And so it makes data and the ability to bring the right process and the right outcome at the right time to these specific challenges. It makes it a reality, which then reinforces and builds confidence in the organization that these hills aren't too big to climb. And I would say with partners like Tech Mahindra and their ability to execute using tools like Pega, the reality doesn't become too difficult in the way it maybe it once was years ago when I was a part of the automotive world. For example, my automotive career started at Nissan as well. And we saw so many things that we used to want to do, but the technology in those days wouldn't allow it. So the bottom line is the how is no longer too big of a hurdle, but it remains a question is how you can use some of these modern tools to enable agility in ways that hasn't been done before.
Great, thanks, Steve. And before we jump into the first poll, Nilesh, was there anything that you see from a Tech Mahindra perspective when you work with clients on kind of an enterprise view of how to tackle challenges within their businesses? I want to give you maybe a minute or two to kind of provide your perspective.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me over here for the panel. And a very interesting discussion, which we started. So I come with a career, half of my career I spent on the auto OEM side. I was in the field establishing the dealer channel, and then the remaining half on the technology side, trying to put the solution for the customers. So let me try to bring a little different perspective on the challenge when we are talking over here is, and that was also one of the question which I saw coming from our audience, is, the engineering side of it and the service side of it. One of the challenge I'm seeing is, especially with the EV coming into picture, there are almost about 35% of the new product lines which are getting added. So today you have IC engine and you also have the EV, which is going to coexist. All these new products are going to come with a lot of software, a lot of digital. So which means that, you have a product performance knowledge, you have the diagnostic data, and then you think in terms of, hey, there is a great field engineer over there, and all these things it need to converge at his place so that he can do a good first time right. He can do a good lead time in terms of, he taking and doing the service. Now, what does it mean is the service, the product performance data, the engineering data, all of this need to come together to help him. And one of the key challenge today I see is that in our aftermarket channel, the data is hugely distributed. So there is a good part which the OEMs are holding. There is a good part the tier one companies are holding. There is a good part the dealer is holding separately. Now, how this will converge and bring it together. And that's where I think, while the Pega is kind of laying the foundation and the platform, and then the engineering aspect coming on top of it, will be a great value add. But currently, majority, I know that, Mike and Joe, they are taking a lot of initiatives on setting up and deploying the AR, VR kind of a tools. But then they'll definitely need a help in terms of, what you're going to stream, how you're going to bring all this data together so that the field engineers becomes more and more smart to take it.
Thanks, Nilesh. And I think, from my perspective, I continue to struggle with how we haven't tackled that challenge of siloed data and siloed information, siloed knowledge across an organization. We've been talking about closed loops of innovation for, a decade now. We're still not quite there yet. I do want to give everyone on the webinar today a chance to weigh in. You heard quite a few of the challenges that are faced by a number of the executives on this call, but we'll open up the first poll today to look at what are your primary challenges facing your service business today. And there's a few options there. Hopefully they will be indicative of what you're seeing. And I believe we just launched the poll. You should see it on your screen. And as you kind of type in your answers, if there's anything, Mike and Joe, that kind of pop up as you see these going through that are antithetical to what you see with your businesses, please do chime in. But we got some good in participation so far. It looks like improving service value seems to not to lead witnesses, but seems to be kind of top of mind for organizations as they think about challenges faced in kind of this new world. I think, Mike, you laid out kind of your view earlier about how you need to continuously innovate. And Joe, you laid out how, an Amazon environment may not be competitive in the past, but you need to continuously think about how you can drive at service value, even when you think you might need to continue to hit that moving target, as you stated, Mike. So I think we have a pretty good response there. And not throwing the spot, Mike or Joe, but anything jump out that's, I think the increased competition not being a challenge is somewhat that's interesting for me, because that's an area where I continue to see manufacturers across industries see that as being a challenge for their businesses.
I think you led the witness, because we've got improving service value is 42%, but it's clearly that's where we all have to move towards. And like you said, it's a moving target, it's moving quickly, and at some point during this meeting, I hope we can talk about some of the data, because Nilesh brought up some really great points around what are some of the challenges that we have with the amount of data, the frequency of it, the siloed nature of it, to actually innovate and drive service value. So it's a really interesting topic, Nilesh.
And I would agree with your comment on competition. There is a lot of aftermarket competition out there on our side of the business. So that's certainly a priority for us to address, but all of those are important challenges, right? There was nothing on that list that isn't that we're all not facing today.
Great. In the next few minutes, I think we have about 10 minutes for this next line of questioning that looks at going beyond the challenges. And Joe, you alluded to some of this when you talked about value, but maybe you can kick off this question when we think about how Navistar is looking at enhancing kind of the owner experience while still ensuring you're able to protect revenue. In some industries I work in, service has been given away for free for so long, value hasn't been defined. So on a contract, you never know, are we hitting the margins we need? So how do you think about enhancing the owner experience without kind of taking away from profitability within your business?
I think when we think about the ownership experience, we're really, a few years ago, we started an initiative which we called Vision 2025, and it was really a set of dealers and a set of Navistar executives that got together and said, hey, what do we have to do to ensure that we can continue to grow and be profitable over the next several years? And the first thing that we agreed on was whatever decisions we made, whatever directions we decided to take as a combined organization, as a partnership, we have to do it with putting the customer at the center of everything that we do, and work backwards from there. So focus on the customer, and then develop solutions that help the customer be profitable, that help them be successful. Because we realize that, for our after sales business, it really is a population game. The more market share we have, the more trucks that we have coming back into our dealers' shops for both parts and service work, the more we're going to be successful. And we have to protect those revenues. There's no question about that. So, we decided as a company, as an organization, to really focus on uptime and total cost of ownership. We really feel like that can be our niche in the marketplace to really succeed. And if we can be successful as an OEM dealer partnership in providing our customers with the highest levels of uptime and total cost of ownership, then that will ensure that we keep those customers coming back to us and making us their number one choice as a transportation provider. So that's really where we focused our efforts. Now, how are we going to get value out of that? Beyond the obvious parts and service sales, we're putting a heavy bet on connected services and using our On-Command Connect platform to help us to really provide value to our customers. We're thinking about how do we offer a portfolio of both products and services that can help them be successful. We launched an initiative called Intelligent Fleet Care that uses our telematics solution and our ability to be connected with our customers and their equipment to be able to provide predictive diagnostics and tools for fleet efficiency, to be able to help them with advanced preventive maintenance programs and the correct intervals for service and maintenance parts, which may not always be the published intervals in our manuals, with fuel analytics to provide them data and insights to help them with their fuel economy, with remote diagnostics and the ability to help them solve problems in their trucks before the truck goes down. Those are the kind of things that we're doing to enhance the owner experience. And then I mentioned earlier some of the things we're doing around our network, with expansion of our distribution centers, with broadening our parts product portfolio. We continue to add new product lines to our FleetRight brand, which is an all makes brand that our dealers can use to help go get independent garages and second and fourth owners, et cetera. Well, we just launched a new light duty diesel line called Diamond Advantage. Again, trying to offer new products and services that enhance the owner experience. And it's really kind of our thinking around how we go about this. Start with the customer, find solutions that appeal to that customer and drive value.
Great, thanks, Joe. Mike, this may be somewhat of a easy to be teed up, thinking about that focus on the customer in your business. How do you think about, from a Nissan North America perspective, how you're able to not only deliver more value and enhance the experience, but differentiate across kind of a very competitive environment?
Yeah, I wish I could just say, whatever Joe just said, we're going to try to do the same thing, because Joe, you've laid out a pretty well articulated plan, around supply chain and new product development and really taking care of the customer in different ways. So, but I think Ali's looking for maybe one more point on top of that. So, I'd say that, starting last year with the pandemic, one of the benefits of it, I think, was, really a heightened focus on customer service for a lot of companies, as recognizing how things are changing rapidly. I can tell you that our network, we have around 15 million customer touch points per year in the region. So mostly customer pay, but there are some recall and warranty type work. And Joe alluded to some of that earlier. So, 15 million touch points, which creates data by itself, never mind all the connected car data and sensor information that's coming off the vehicles. So they expanded, cleaning protocols, started to offer touchless, which I kind of mentioned earlier. And with less cars in the production pipeline due to the pandemic, dealers really had to focus on, just like an OEM did, on fixed operations more, and really continue to look for any offsets to the erosion in revenue that we're experiencing because of the pandemic. And then Joe mentioned also, part supply issues that we're facing as an industry. So, being creative and innovative there, to deal with that. As far as like in the last 12 months and in the next 12 months, what are we using technology for to innovate and either offset revenue, look for optimizations, or take care of the customer experience? I'll just briefly touch on, this micro segmentation we talked about earlier, and, hyper personalization, and now getting messages right into the vehicle. So in-vehicle messaging becomes, the next frontier, let's say, of touch point with the customer. Highly relevant, timely, trustworthy, and so on. So I think this is a really cool part of where the industry is going. But I want to talk maybe about some part of the value chain that's a little bit hidden to the customer that we can use technology. Joe, you mentioned, technician shortage. We're all having a hard time finding technicians. Criticality of uptime for your customers. It's the same for ours. Nobody wants to see their baby at the shop for a week. You want it back right away. The vehicle technology is more and more advanced, and continually, as we move towards electrification, advanced driver assistance, and so on, the cars are harder and harder to repair, and they're complex. So in the last 24 months, we've put a lot of focus around fix right first time. So you don't have to bring your car back twice or 3 times to get something repaired or maintained. And so, a lot of investment in virtual training for our technicians, focus on fix right first time kind of training and awareness. In fact, this year, we were acknowledged or recognized as the #1 brand in the United States for fix right first time. So monumental improvement, which is to me a huge driver of customer satisfaction and value. So the way we did it, Ali, was we looked at technologies to do a guided repair process. In fact, worked with Pega on this. We call it our virtual claims authorization tool, which is really streamlining the repair process in the service drive. We updated our electronic parts catalog and electronic service manuals to make them more intelligent, deep integrations of our data, these kind of things. And then really to address the technician shortage, we've now shifted our mindset. And Joe, don't steal this thunder here, but you may want to apply this to your own business. It's that I'm starting to view the technician like a semiconductor chip. So we've all seen, in the past how the semiconductor microchips have gotten smaller and smaller and more powerful. And so, trying to shift the mindset to how do we use technology to make the technician more and more productive and drive their output. And I'm thinking, if we use, obviously connected car data, augmented reality, intelligent tools like VCAT, and, deep integrations, that in the short term, it'd be cool if we could double or triple the output of every single technician in our industry without taking shortcuts, or making any kind of service compromises, but like treat the capacity like a semiconductor and almost like apply Moore's law to the technicians and, increase their output by, double every 18 months or something like that. So it'll help to address the customer side because the vehicle gets fixed faster and better. And it addresses some of the, the capacity constraints that we have around technicians. So maybe a little geeky, but starting to look at the technicians as semiconductor chips.
Yeah, no, well, as a technology analyst, it's always cool to double productivity and knowledge quickly. I think we have time now to jump into our second poll. Just looking at a time check. So I don't know if we want to launch this next one around, what has changed within your after sales operation the past 12 months. A number of options here, a few that we track here at IDC. Mike, I believe you laid out kind of that remoteless, contactless experiences as being, key to our businesses. I think there's an opportunity, obviously, to think about ecosystems as we talk about partnership relationships and, what does it mean to focus on service as opposed to only product sales. I mean, a number of great options here, but I'm interested to see where the poll takes us before we jump into our next discussion point around kind of Mike kind of preluded it a little bit around kind of digital transformation technology, but I think we will get into that next. So I'll give it a few more seconds. And Joe, maybe if you, actually I'll tee up Nilesh if there's anything you see on the slide around the poll that is interesting to you based off of interactions you have from a Tech Mahindra perspective.
Yeah, so there is actually one area where even personally I am interested and deeply involved is building the service cloud. And I see that, our customers like Nissan and Navistar are also kind of, moving in that direction. So my, one of the key vision over here is that, how you integrate and link the field quality with the product quality, with the production quality, and how you establish that traceability. And that's where, the whole concept of the service cloud is coming into picture to take and build. And I agree with, Mike, what you said, the first time, right? I mean, that's the topmost use case, which we'd like to take and drive to the service cloud.
Great. Thanks, Nilesh. And just to wrap up the polls, Mike, it looks like your note around contactless is top of mind for manufacturers on this call. I think there's also a lot of interest on, that customer experience programs that Joe, you laid out within your business. So how about we jump into what's next? So I think one of the things that I think is really interesting as I continue to talk to the market is the fact that, it's not necessarily what we're doing today that's going to be right for a long time. Mike, you laid out, service after sales is a moving target, customer expectations evolve. Maybe if we can kind of jump into what's next for the businesses that you see. Joe, if you can give me a lay of the land for Navistar, when you think about kind of getting it right for that next disruption that's facing your business, what's next? It could be technology, it could be process improvement, it could be expanding on your ecosystem. You laid out a number of great options earlier, but when you think about your priorities, what's on your kind of quick hitter list for what's next for your business?
So it's going to start again with that focus on customer centricity, right? And then what do we have to do again to continue to provide solutions that our customers value? And for us, the way we're thinking about it is really, how do we get ahead of the game? And what's next is going to be, the predictive and the prescriptive type of maintenance, trying to solve problems before they become a problem for our customers, selling more services, thinking differently about how we're connected with our customers. And what we mean by connected is not just connected devices like telematics devices, but how do we integrate across our supply chain so that our dealer systems, our systems, and our customer systems become integrated to the extent where we make it very easy for our customers to do business with us. Obviously, what's next includes what happens with electrification and what happens with autonomous and what happens to the parts business as a result of technologies changing. That's something that I know Mike is probably a little more in the weeds on than we are today, as the auto industry is kind of ahead of the truck industry and introducing electric products. But, that's something certainly that we have to think about. We're also thinking about, to Mike's point about making technicians' life easier. How do we use AI, and how do we use real in-depth analytics and incorporate that into our live diagnostics processes for our technicians, and use decision trees to really drive their actions on a real-time basis so that they're getting repairs done as quickly and efficiently as possible. How do we use it? We're piloting now with the HoloLens to say, how do we use augmented reality to help, diagnose and offer solutions for complex repairs for our technicians. All of those kind of things are things that we're thinking about, next as we proceed on our digitalization journey. I mentioned we got a long way to go and tons of opportunity to offer really in-depth touch points with our customers.
Great, thanks, Joe. And Mike, maybe don't give the secret sauce of what you have going on over at Nissan North America, but from your perspective, you laid out a number of digital initiatives and ways in which you're thinking about kind of continuous innovation. But what's on your quick list of what's next for your business within after sales within Nissan North America?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, and I'll piggyback on some of the things Joe said. Again, probably in some ways, we're ahead, but I think in some ways we're also behind, and so we're probably at the same exact point when you average all out, Joe. The question's excellent around, where are we going? How do we future-proof? And I'll insert my requisite Canadian reference here, which is you got to skate to where the puck's going, not where the puck's been, if you want to, really make change and be successful. I'll talk about two areas. You started about customer, but I'll start with supply chain. And it's something that I'm seeing. I think everybody sees this, is that because of electrification and connectivity and advanced technologies in the cars, that our supply chain infrastructure is looking a lot less like automotive these days and a lot more like consumer electronics. So I'm not really sure what that means, but I think we'll have to at some point take a page out of the playbook of the consumer electronics companies and focus differently on each tier of the supply chain versus just kind of tier one. I think we need to get a little deeper into the supply chain tier 2 and 3. We also invested in 3D technology last year. So, we're printing more and more parts, and I really want to scale that up, to use one of Ali's terms. How do we find a way to scale up some of these activities to really drive performance? And, Joe talked about right part, right place, right time, take care of the customer. There's a lot of emphasis around the supply chain. We're very proud of our organization in the Americas. And, this year, in fact, Carlisle recognized our company as being the automotive supplier of the year for performance in supply chain. So, I mean, it's something that we think we're on the right track, but we know there's a lot more work to be done. And then, Joe talked about the customer, so I'll wrap a few things around the customer here as well. And, again, it's not what the customer wants today, because, it's too late now to build an innovative solution for today's needs. I think we need to look at where they're going tomorrow. And then, as we've talked about today, how do we wrap technologies around this and eliminate some of the friction points, because there's always going to be friction points, especially with new technologies and so on. So we're continuing to advance and accelerate the development of the telematics capabilities. More and more diagnostic trouble codes are being created and harvested. Over-the-air updates now becoming more common term. You hear OTA, FOTA, and even software over-the-air SOTA, becoming part of the everyday vernacular. We want to deliver things like user-based insurance and user-based maintenance type packages, pay as you drive, pay how you drive. So really taking all of the various data that is out there, somehow linking it together, weaponizing it so that we can continue to improve on the customer experience. And I guess just lastly on the messaging itself, having access to the vehicle cockpit with in-vehicle messaging, I think is going to be critical, to have timely messaging. There's a few questions in the Q&A here around electrification and messaging and oil changes and stuff like that. We have to continually evolve at an accelerated pace to just keep up to the marketplace. So, in the end, there's a lot of things we can do. I just said a lot. Joe said a lot. I think it's critical for us to, recognize that we can do anything, but we can't do everything. Right. So, we'll have to make a prioritized list and sort of chip away at them and deliver value with flawless execution in short term.
Well, I think what's interesting about that, Mike, and you bring up a good point of, it's not just one thing, right? We can't just look at only doing one thing and that being what success will look like. We need to be able to juggle multiple priorities and ensure we're able to do this well. Steve, maybe I'll bring you back in before we go and wrap and get to Q&A. Part of the challenge I see, you laid out the how earlier. Yep. And that's how you kind of get from challenges to accelerated transformation. But when I talk to manufacturers, a lot of what they're working with is legacy, cobbled together, piloted, siloed systems. Nilesh brought up silos of data from engineering to kind of service. How do you help, from a Pega perspective, do you help get past that complexity of complex assets and products, complex systems of IT, while delivering kind of on that promise of service innovation and transformation?
So our mission at Pega is to help clients like Nissan and Navistar crush complexity. Complexity is the biggest deterrent to transformation and the improvements in customer experience, dealer experience, and all the aspirations and priorities that Joe and Mike articulated. What you need is a few things. One is, I think you need an architectural approach that allows you to turn insights into action, not just in the individual channels or touch points. So what you heard from Joe and Mike was all of these different endpoints, touch points, interaction environments, and individual processes that if you were to just focus on them as individuals, you would be spending years and years and years and never actually be able to catch up given all of the other priorities that have to go on. On the other extreme are all of those systems of record. And there's so many of them, both that live inside the four walls of our clients and then the partner data environments. And so what's needed is an architectural approach that operates from the center out, where you can use technology like Pega as an agility layer to automate sort of and connect those disparate processes and then change them on a dime with clicks, not code, to basically execute on these kinds of processes. And then lastly, and I think very importantly, that whether it's the decisions around the way a process should learn and adjust based on maybe quality signals or maybe customer signals around take rates or usage of products and the like, and then use that context to adjust the execution of a process or the execution of the personalization that needs to take place in these interactions, And you have platforms like Pega that, again, make that easier now than ever before. So the how, I go back to the how again. The how should no longer be an impediment when you work collaboratively as we do with our partners and our clients that you hear here today.
And maybe, thanks, Steve, and maybe just to Nilesh, give you about 30 seconds before we hop into Q&A. I don't want to shorten it too much, but as kind of the ecosystem partner within both the Pega world and the two executives on this team, when you think about maybe one takeaway that you can leave the audience with before we hop into the Q&A, what would that be, Nilesh?
Sure. So while Joe and Mike will create a great value for the end customer, what is there on plate for me and Steve is to create value for Mike and Joe. And for us, I think, if I look at what next is the cloud and analytics. So while Joe is going to, take AR, VR, Mike is talking big from the ADAS autonomous connected point of view and all of that data is already getting onto cloud. Now, the question is that how the remaining part of the system of records and the legacy, we take it on cloud and make a meaningful analysis out of it, diagnostic out of it, and make it available. I think that's what will be the what next and big bet for us.
Great. Thanks for sticking to 30 seconds, Nilesh.
Thanks.
So with that, I would definitely want to thank the entire panel. So Mike, Joe, Steve, and Nilesh for a great discussion. I think it aligns with a lot of what we see within the data. I believe we have about 3 minutes for questions and hopefully some answers. So I'll pass it back to Padma.
Thank you, Ali. I definitely think this was a great panel. There's a question from the audience to Mike and Joe. And the question says, are you seeing the need for trusted after-sales networks to improve trustworthiness of vehicles, whether it's certification of vehicle, part components, parts origin, et cetera?
I'll take a stab at it if you want, Joe. And
go ahead, Mike. I'll let you in.
You can start the next one. How's that? Yeah, I think, yes, there is a need for that. And interestingly enough, though, in the last, let's say 14 months, we've seen actually an increase in do-it-yourself activity and actually a little bit of a spike from Gen Z consumers, so people are actually trying to do maintenance and service on their vehicles, at least automotive. I wouldn't think that's the case in heavy trucking, but, at least in our sector, people are doing it themselves a little more. So I think that's an interesting trend. However, the vehicles are getting more and more complex. And at some point, you would need a robotics degree in order to fix your own car or, to fix someone else's car. So they're getting highly advanced as far as the technology, more and more sensors. Today's cars have around 60 sensors, and tomorrow they're going to have 250 sensors broadcasting data and so on. They're all going to need to have, calibration, maintenance, and service, sometimes replacement. And so I do believe that, the industry will kind of continue to evolve around that trusted repair type of infrastructure, the way that it always has and the way that it always will, because vehicles continually, the technology continually advances.
Joe, anything you want to add to that?
No, let's go on to the next one.
All right. The other question is, we talked about, Mike, you said you can't fix everything, but you can do a lot of things. There's lots of things to do. You've got to pick the right things. So I guess the question for Joe, you take a stab at going with this first, is how do you prioritize when you're trying to pick the one thing that you want to get fix, or improve? How do you prioritize that? What are some of the things you keep in mind to choose the right initiative so that you get quick returns, soon?
Yeah, so we want initiatives that we can pilot quickly. That's one way for us to help prioritize. We have to be in an environment where we're very agile and we move quickly and we try things and we fail fast and we try other things. The thing that we're using to prioritize is, does it have an impact on the customer? That is probably what we're using as a filter right now to say, what's the most important things to do first?
Okay, thank you. One last question, and the question is, what are some of the things they're doing to resolve the conflict between the OEM and the dealers in terms of limited investment in digital capabilities on the dealer side, with adoption lags that come with lack of trust? The OEM is doing the right thing for the dealer. customer and OEM.
I don't see it as a conflict. I think that there's definitely different rates of adoption to technologies, okay, and application of technologies, and that goes, between markets, and economies and continents, and also goes between dealers, within this country, so I don't see it as a conflict. I do think it's, a bit of maybe a friction point for a consumer that has an expectation of a consistent experience going from one outlet to another. But we're very keen on investing on the service side around, like I said, technologies that will eliminate those friction points. The dealers have the same ambition. And so, I think we're fully aligned on how do we take care of our customers and do it in a cost-effective way. Again, recognizing that we can do anything, we can't do everything. And so sometimes dealers are also making these prioritization decisions, like Joe mentioned, around short-term benefit, long-term benefit, and also the amount of resources that they have to allocate to each project. So, we just can't do everything. So we end up with varying degrees of, adoption of the technology.
All right. That brings us to the end of our session today. We unfortunately do not have time to answer all of the questions live, but I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today, and hope you all found this session as interesting as I did. We have recorded this session, and the recording will be made available to you on our respective websites, on the Pega website and the Tech Mahindra website. Give it a couple of days to get that refreshed. But if you would like to have a follow-up conversation with TechM or with Pega, feel free to reach out to your Pega or Tech Mahindra contact, and we'll be more than happy to have a follow-up discussion with you and help you with any needs that you have in this space. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.